This video is about the police in the United States of America and the citizens of the United States of America when it comes to the crime wave and the lethal violence that is happening in America. Welcome to Straddled Events. On this channel, we bring you the truth. Sometimes the truth is quite ugly, unbearable, and you just don't want to deal with it. Gun violence in America. It's a story that touches every corner of the country but does not impact everyone equally. Gun injuries alone cost the healthcare system more than an estimated $1 billion a year. Not enough attention is being paid to gun suicides, which is 60% of all gun deaths in America. 117,183 has died from suicide since 2015 through 2019. An active shooter is a person that's trying to kill people in a large population. There was 3 in 2000 and 40 in 2020. With the largest event being in Las Vegas on October the 1st of 2017, where 60 people were killed and hundreds were wounded. And it is the cause of school lockdowns and an overall sense of dread. Homicides were down in the 90s and now they're significantly up since 2014. 4.47 per 1,000 people have died from homicides from 2015 to 2019. About 74% of nearly 95,000 homicides are committed using guns. Black Americans account roughly for 57% of all gun homicide victims. Washington, D.C., Louisiana, and Mississippi are the highest states for gun violence.
The commitment is, and I'm going to let Chief Finner speak to some of the aspects of the criminal investigation, but what we are seeing on what appears to be a regular basis on the streets of Harris County has got to stop. It has got to stop. These are not assaults. These are not attacks. These are brutal, brutal murders. We have got to put an end to this. All of the resources of Harris County, as well as the resources of the City of Houston, the District Attorney's Office, are going to be working together to bring justice to Corporal Galloway. We cannot have people like this on our streets. I don't want to raise my family, my grandchildren, in a county where this type of crime is running rampant. These are men and women who go out there on a daily basis, not because of the pay and not because of the days off and not because they like to work day shift or night shift. It's because they want to make a difference in their community, and this is what happens. We have to be able to address this across the board, and this county and the City of Houston has made that commitment. I'm going to let Chief Finner now talk a little bit about the aspects of the criminal investigation. Chief.
As Constable said, this has to stop. Not only law enforcement, but all our citizens. It's just sad. I just ask for prayers for the family, the entire department. I just want to touch on what happened this morning. So in approximately 12:45 a.m. in the 9100 block of Beechnut, deputy stopped traffic.
I have been at the bedside of a police officer who was shot by a 16-year-old as they struggled for a gun. I have seen a topless, blood-stained pink jacket in the street. I have held hands and prayed with her mother. That 11-month-old baby was shot in the head by gunmen who didn't care where those bullets went. And on Friday night, 2 officers were ambushed when they answered a domestic violence call. The suspect had a .45 caliber in his hand and a loaded assault rifle under his mattress. NYPD officer Jason Rivera was killed in the line of duty that Friday night, doing what he swore an oath to do: protect the people of this city. We pray for him, his family, as well as for his partner, Officer Wilbert Mora, who remains in the hospital. But my fellow New Yorkers, we are going to do a lot more than pray. We're going to turn our pain into purpose. We're going to unite and take action. New Yorkers feel as if a sea of violence is engulfing our city. But as your mayor, I promise you, I will not let this happen. We will not surrender our city to the violent few.
The murder rate rose nearly 30%, which was the largest percentage on record. Murder, manslaughter, and aggravated assault have all risen tremendously. Robbery has decreased along with rape, and also there's a decrease in property crime when it comes to burglary and larceny, but there's an increase when it comes to motor vehicle theft increase. So the question is, why is this happening? The first video you will see will explain how the police, 21 police officers, have been charged with murder or some other form of murder when it comes to assault on young black men period, men of color period. And that raises a problem when it comes to leadership. This report shows the number of reported murder and non-negligent manslaughter cases in the United States from 1990 to 2020. In 1990, you had 24,700 cases under the leadership of George W. Bush. It dropped tremendously in 1999, down to 15,522 under the leadership of Bill Clinton. It rose again to 17,309 in 2006 under the leadership of George W. Bush Jr. It rose again under the leadership of Obama administration in 2016 to 17,413. And it rose again under the leadership of Donald Trump to 21,570. And this is as of September, if I'm not mistaken, of 2020, September the 21st, this report was generated. The question is, why does crime get so out of control when the Republicans are in office, along with Obama? I'm just saying, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm not conservative, independent. I am none of that. I'm just speaking the facts. What we do here, we tell the truth. On the other hand, you have all of these guns that are in the hands of all of these young people that should not be in their hands. That falls on your citizens, the parents, the mothers, the fathers. In order for this to get under control, you're going to have to unite between the police and the citizens and take back America, because it is way out of control. In the second video, you will find that since January the 1st of this year, many officers have lost their lives. And what really struck me kind of oddly was that 14 officers have lost their life to a silent killer, which was COVID-19, since January the 1st of 2022. So as I come to do the research to see how many police officers have died from COVID-19 pandemic, the page just keeps loading. This is from 2020. It says, beginning in early 2020, thousands of law enforcement officers and other first responders throughout the country have contracted COVID-19 during the worldwide pandemic due to requirements of their job. The following law enforcement officers died as a result of contracting the virus in the line of duty. They say we continue to work with dozens of other agencies that have suffered COVID-19 related deaths as they work to make confirmed or presumed determinations of line of duty. And I am recording this. As you can see, the pictures keep loading and loading. And just look at all of these fallen officers. It's still loading. This is so sad, Lord. It's still loading. Wow, this is just a lot. This page is called Officers Down Memorial Page. So you can go out here and take a look at this for yourself. But you have all of these police officers that have died from COVID-19. This is really sad. Fallen officer from COVID-19. A lot of people would like to blame this surge of crime on the coronavirus, but that was police brutality that has been happening for many years prior to the coronavirus. This is the statistics of the number of people shot to death by police in the United States from 2017 to 2021 by race. Since sadly, the trend of fatal police shootings in the United States seems to only be increasing, with a total of 880 civilians having been shot, 113 of whom were black, as of December 2021. In 2020, there were 1,021 fatal police shootings, and in 2019, there were 999 fatal shootings. Additionally, the rate of fatal police shootings among Black Americans was much higher than that of any other ethnicity, standing at 37 fatal shootings per million of the population as of December of 2021. And I think what has happened is that the police set up a precedent as they cannot be trusted when it comes to a police stop or dealing with the police. So now the young people automatically are on the defense in thinking that I see a police officer, is flight or fight, kill or be killed. And that has created a big problem in the United States. There were police officers on the police force that had no respect for people of color lives. And while they were so busy killing unarmed black men, that led to a protest. And while they were so busy covering the protests, there were other people committing crimes because all the police was too busy trying to protect the protesters, which was something that was created by the police force. And at the same time, Donald Trump goes into the office and racism just went off the chart. There were no respect of other people's lives, and people of color and minority was devalued as if their life did not matter. And that created the next problem. You're going to have to learn how to deal with each other when it comes to humanity. Because see, at the end of the day, these police officers that are out there working on behalf of the citizens, they are loved, they have families too. But also police officers, when you're going out there targeting black people and young people and people of color, they are loved and they have a family also. After all the protests, the Republicans still did not want to pass the bill for the police to not shoot and kill unarmed minority people of color men. That's where we are in the world. Why is burglary and larceny and those types of crimes are down? Because one thing the coronavirus did, it made you stay at home. So people could no longer break in your houses and steal like they would have in prior years. You know, the citizens of the United States and everywhere else around the world, people are stressed because of the coronavirus. You had to alter your life. And when it comes to change, a lot of people have a hard time with change. A lot of people lost jobs. They're dealing with sick relatives and being forced into staying at home, dealing with each other on a daily basis, more than usual. And this right here is a propensity for violence. Family and domestic violence has skyrocketed because people cannot stand to be around each other anymore, and there is no family structure. People dealing with mental health issues, and many of the governmental and non-governmental programs that dealt with people dealing with these types of conflicts with mental health and things like that, they were closed. The schools were closed. A lot of people have committed crimes and they're being let out of jail on bond, even though they have 2, 3, 4, 5 different crimes that they've committed. Why do you have all these people walking around that have committed terrible crimes? That is definitely a threat to other people. What's going on with the judges? Do you realize that this is a setup for martial law? When are you going to step up to the plate and fix this? Why are you allowing all these criminals out on the street when they need to be in jail? Parents, why you don't have your guns put up in your house? Why your kids have access to this? Fathers, why you not in your sons and your daughters' lives? Mothers, why you not telling your daughters to put on clothes and do better by themselves? At the end of the day, on this program, we're going to show you both sides of what is going on. And we're asking both sides, the police and the citizens of the United States, to do better. Because you can do better. Just do it. Do better. Damn. Here goes the program.
more police officers are facing more legal consequences, perhaps than ever before. In 2021, a record number of officers, 21, was charged with murder or manslaughter. Now, that's the highest number ever recorded. But activists say this is really only a start and that more actually needs to be done in order to hold law enforcement accountable. NBC News reporter Eric Ortiz has been tracking this story for us. Eric, I want to start with the numbers here. Is there any indication that this 21 number signifies a real turning point when it comes to police accountability?
Hi, Morgan. Yeah, as you point out, last year was a record 21 police officers charged. Now, that's strictly for fatal shootings, and that data collected by Bowling Green State University researchers does show the number has been going up over the past 5 years. You had as few as 7 officers charged back in 2017. But the problem is to really understand if there is accountability happening through these numbers, there just needs to be more thorough data. Researchers admit it's incomplete because there is no nationwide database on police use of force, on police killings, on whether charges are filed. And if we had this data, they say, it would better inform policymaking and departmental reforms. We could see the trends over time, which departments are using lethal force at a higher rate, and why there may be more prosecutions happening.
Eric, how many people, when we talk about were shot by police last year, I mean, that 21 number, is that addressing those who were shot? I mean, and does that number break down or shift according to demographics?
Yeah, we know that roughly 1,000 people are fatally shot every year by a police officer. An analysis by the Washington Post found that Black citizens are killed at more than twice the rate as white citizens. Most of those killed, about 95%, are males between 20 and 40 years old. Now, one interesting finding is that last year, fatal police shootings were down about 13% from 2020. It's not entirely clear why, but part of that could be because some officers are simply being more cautious or even fearful about the consequences of using deadly force. Or, some departments have altered their use of force policies in the wake of protests and activists calling for more systemic changes.
And Eric, just finally, what else do activists say in terms of specific needs to be done in order to really hold more police officers accountable across the country? Do they think there needs to be a federal approach to solving this?
Yeah, well, activists have been putting more pressure on prosecutors to thoroughly investigate these fatal police encounters. Lawmakers have been trying to push laws and federal policies in place. But, we've seen some prosecutors in major cities making these investigations a real cornerstone of their reform agendas. You have states like California, where each fatal shooting triggers a review by the state attorney general. You have these high-profile trials recently in Minneapolis, where officers were convicted, and you have another one starting today in connection with George Floyd. So there's definitely a sense that charges and convictions are no longer impossible to attain, but we do know that it's still extremely rare, and it's safe to say that we're not at any major inflection point just yet.
All right, Eric Ortiz for us there. Eric, thank you.
The following clips are all the police officers who have died in the line of duty since January the 1st, 2022. May they rest in peace. This page is called Officer Down Memorial Page. It honors officers that have been killed in 2022. The first officer is Christopher Gibson, January the 2nd of 2022, COVID. Deportation Officer William Hayes, January 3rd, COVID. Trooper John Sumter Horton, January 3rd, struck by vehicle. Deputy Sheriff Brian Vanata, January 3rd, COVID-19. Police Officer Bart Lane Arnold, January 3rd, COVID-19. Police Officer Jesse Chu Lara, January 4th, COVID-19. Police Officer Richard Lynn Tostenson, January 6th, COVID. Captain Reginald Kamal Smith, January 7th, COVID. Deputy Sheriff Michael McQuinney, January 8th, COVID. Detention Sergeant Janelle L. Visor, January 9th, COVID. Police Officer 2nd Fernando Rojas, January 10th, gunfire. Police Officer Diane Gonzalez, January 10th, automobile crash. Chief of Police Michael E. German, January 13th, COVID. Investigator Stephen Ray Finley, January 14th, COVID. Corrections Officer Melissa M. France, January 17th, COVID. Corporal Ernest M. Robinson, January 18th, COVID. Chief of Police Don Rip, January 20th, COVID. Police Officer Corporal Jones, January 20th, automobile crash. Police Officer Tyler Lenahan, January 21st, vehicle assault. School Resource Officer Johnny Patterson, January 21st, struck by car. Detective Jason Rivera, January 21st, gunfire. Special Agent Anthony Salas, January 22nd, accidental. Corporal Charles Galloway, January 23rd, gunfire. Sergeant Ramon Gutierrez, January 24th, vehicular assault. Police Officer Wilbert Mora, January 25th, gunfire. K9 Benji, January 5th, struck by vehicle. K9 Jedi, January 5th, stabbed. A North Carolina community is reeling after a state trooper died in a tragic accident. Trooper John Horton pulled over a motorcycle. His brother, Trooper Nick Horton, also responded to the scene. As Nick approached the scene, he lost control of his cruiser. The crash killed his brother and the motorcyclist he pulled over.
He's gone, all the kids, his wife. Why couldn't they have picked somebody else?
It's probably like a bad dream to him this morning. Like a bad dream you just can't get out of, you know?
Officials are investigating the cause of the crash. North Carolina's governor offered condolences to those involved, including Mr. Dusty Luke Beck.
Accused members of a notorious street gang facing federal charges in the murder of LAPD officer Fernando Arroyos. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Jeff Vaughn.
And I'm Jasmine Veal in tonight for Pat Harvey. Now, those suspects made a federal court appearance today in downtown LA, not county court. CBS 2's Rachel Kim, she's live to explain why. Rachel?
Jasmine and Jeff, the U.S. Attorney's Office said due to some logistical issues, only 2 of the 4 defendants were in court this afternoon. Luis Rios and Jesse Contreras were ordered held without bond, with arraignment set for February 3rd. Law enforcement officials want to make sure justice is fully served for Officer Fernando Arroyos.
These are the 4 people now charged in the shooting death of LAPD officer Fernando Arroyos. Federal prosecutors say the 3 men are members of a notorious street gang. The woman is an associate and the girlfriend of one of them.
We have a criminal street gang. It's been multi-generational. It's plagued that community. It's plagued the Newton area for decades.
The charges come after Officer Arroyos was shot and killed off duty while house hunting in South LA with his girlfriend just after 9 p.m. on Monday. According to the criminal complaint, suspect Luis Rios said he and his group were driving around looking to make money, a term for robberies. The complaint says suspect Ernesto Contreras told him to stop the truck and get the chain, referring to jewelry the officer was wearing. In the complaint, Haley Grisham, the girlfriend, is quoted saying Cisneros pointed the gun at the officer and ordered him to give him the chains. She said she heard several gunshots and saw Rios run back to the car. Officer Arroyos was hit during an exchange of gunfire and later died. After an intense manhunt, the suspects were arrested 2 days later. Normally in a case like this, police would take their case to prosecutors in the district attorney's office. In a news conference last night, LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva explained why his investigators took the case to the U.S. Attorney's Office instead.
We definitely I had conversation with the local DAs, and their response was not satisfactory. Their plan was to just prosecute a simple murder with no gun enhancements, no gang enhancements, nothing. And that did not really cover the depravity of this crime.
District Attorney George Gascon's office sent us a statement which says, "We support the federal authorities taking the case and will be in communication with all the parties involved. It was indicated to us that the case was referred to the federal authorities who filed charges. As such, we did not have an opportunity to review the case." State and federal criminal law attorney Lou Shapiro says law enforcement went to the feds because they wanted the stiffest sentences possible.
Had it gone just to state, it would have been a 25 to life case, and they could have gotten out before 25 years. By going to the feds, they're going via the RICO statute, which could potentially carry even the death penalty.
Now, as for the two other defendants who did not appear in court today, no word on when they will make an appearance. Now, if convicted, all four defendants will be eligible for the death penalty.
Tonight, a sea of red and blue lights line the streets to honor the life of 13-year veteran Officer Diane Gonzalez.
I think this hit us very hard because this happened so long ago, and it's tragic that we forget those that are that close to us and who went through something that important.
In 2008, Officer Gonzalez and Sergeant Dario Scott Aponte were responding to a domestic dispute when their cruisers collided. Sergeant Aponte was killed instantly, but police say Officer Gonzalez suffered a traumatic brain injury and slipped into a coma. She died on Monday.
She always had kind words for people, and she was truly, truly an amazing person, an amazing police officer.
Retired officers who worked with Officer Gonzalez say the thing they'll remember most was her smile.
She wore a smiley face on her uniform as she worked the midnight shift. A night like this, cold, you're tired, and Diane was always smiling.
She just had a way about her, a smile on her face all the time, but with a steadfast sternness to her that was unbending.
Officer Gonzalez is survived by her son, 2 daughters, and her grandchildren.
I'm so happy that her kids got to see how much we loved her, the city of New Haven.
Well, first tonight, 2 people, including a Memphis police officer, killed in a car crash today. It happened at East Shelby Drive and Pleasant Hill. The officer died at Regional 1. The driver of the other vehicle died at the scene. The officer was driving eastbound on East Shelby Drive when another vehicle traveling northbound on Pleasant Hill hit the officer's squad car. That officer has now been identified as Officer Corporal Jones. Well, friends and loved ones of Officer Jones, also known as CJ, are paying tribute to him on social media, highlighting his kindness. Before joining the police force, the loving father of 2 daughters worked at the Memphis Fire Department. Our Brad Broder spoke today with 2 of Officer Jones's longtime friends and joined us live at the Memphis Police Association in downtown Memphis. Brad?
Rudy, a fundraiser launched this morning for Officer Jones here by the MPA's Charitable Foundation is already at about a third of its goal of $40,000 raised. After speaking with longtime friends of Officer Jones and learning more about the man today, such an outpouring of support so soon isn't surprising.
CJ was one of the cheerful, giving, loving people you could ever know.
He's a good family man. And if you was a friend of CJ, he made sure you was good.
Through a mix of shock and grief, longtime friends of Officer Corporal or CJ Jones honor the MPD officer and father of 2 killed in the line of duty in his patrol car Thursday morning.
He left behind a legacy. Even though he was number 32 years old, he still left a legacy.
Anthony Ashton met Officer Jones 12 years ago at the Houston Levy Community Center, playing the sport they both loved, basketball.
CJ had a lot of energy. He was very motivated. When he came to the gym on Sundays, at the gym right here, he always came in with a smile, never complained about anything.
Officer Jones's kind spirit, love of sports, and of service came together in this Facebook video post from April 2021, where he's seen in his MPD uniform shooting hoops and breaking barriers between police and the citizens they serve.
Once he got his career and everything, you can just tell like he was so in love with what he was doing.
Ashton and Antonio Pickens aren't alone in their praise of Officer Jones. Other friends posted posted online, thanking him for the best advice and guidance to help me in my career, and that words will never show the magnitude of the love this city had for you. Another, Officer Jones loved his kids, Christian man, active in the community.
I'm praying for the family, CJ's family, all the basketball community that played with him, and we just gonna hug each other and just pray for each other.
Now, the Tennessee Highway Patrol is leading the investigation into what happened in this morning's deadly crash involving Officer Jones and that other person. We're awaiting additional details on that investigation.
He left for work and never made it home. Now at 10, a candlelight memorial in Elk Grove honoring the life of an officer killed by a wrong-way driver on Highway 99.
It's an incredibly sad day for our organization, for our family, for the Elk Grove community. Our hearts are broken.
Officer Tyler Lenahan, a 6-year veteran of the Elk Grove Police Department and an Air Force veteran, leaves behind a wife and 2 kids.
The alleged wrong-way driver charged with DUI and murder. Tonight we've learned he has a history of drunk driving. Thanks so much for joining us at 10 o'clock. I'm Elizabeth Klein.
I'm Adrienne Moore. The news is also streaming live on CBSN Sacramento. CBS 13's Laura Hafley is live for us outside the Elk Grove Police Department with how Officer Lenahan is being remembered and new details on the crash investigation. Laura.
Well, the community of Elk Grove was here tonight outside of City Hall supporting their law enforcement family. You can still see, despite this wind, candles still burning, remembering the officer gone too soon. And while the law enforcement family mourns, there are still so many questions about the suspect involved.
We're heartbroken. We're broken.
The Elk Grove community held a candlelight memorial Friday night remembering police officer Tyler Lenahan, who was killed while riding his department motorcycle to work.
There are tough days ahead for this organization.
Ty, as he was known to many, worked in law enforcement for decades, first at the Citrus Heights Police Department, then for Galt PD, and finally for Elk Grove's motorcycle unit.
We couldn't believe it.
City Council member Stephanie Wynn's husband worked side by side with Lenahan as a motorcycle officer.
You're not protected like you are in a vehicle, and that the chances of an accident happening and of you surviving is very slim.
Officer Lenahan leaves behind 2 teen sons, a wife, and his law enforcement family saddened and angered by the loss.
This was entirely senseless. This was irresponsible.
Investigators say Jermaine Walton was driving the wrong way on Highway 99 when he hit Lenahan head-on.
A father going to work in the morning to do his job, driving down the road.
Walton was arrested and hit with several charges, including DUI and murder. Court documents show the 31-year-old has a history of drunk driving offenses. In 2017, he was arrested for DUI and driving with a blood alcohol level over 0.08. He was ordered to jail time, work project time, and mandatory classes, but never completed them.
The public record shows that he didn't really do those things.
So why was he legally allowed to drive? We're getting answers. One of the 2017 charges was dismissed. The one that stuck was a misdemeanor. For
all first offender DUIs is that you have a period actually of a complete blackout where you're not allowed to drive for about 30 days. After that, there's about another 3 to 6 months maybe where they have a restricted license.
Walton's still on probation for the 2017 charge at the time of Friday's crash, something attorney Mark Reichel says is likely why Walton was charged with murder and not manslaughter. I've been in touch with Chief Timothy Albright throughout the afternoon into the evening. He's obviously devastated, especially this is the first Elk Grove police officer lost in the line of duty.
Welcome back. Assistant Chief Johnny Patterson served several roles in departments in Verona and Shannon. Just over a week ago, while directing traffic at Shannon Primary School in his role as a Lee County School Resource Officer, he was struck down by a car. He passed away Friday. Today, friends and family came to remember his life of service. Desmond Matthews was there. He joins us live in the studio. Desmond?
Officer Johnny Patterson was the assistant chief in Verona, and while his death left a void, his legacy is expected to live on. one last ride. Former Verona Assistant Chief Johnny Patterson served over 20 years in law enforcement, 10 of which were with the Verona Police Department. Officer Patterson was out directing traffic here at the Shannon Primary School when he was hit by a car which led to his death. On Monday, his funeral was held in Shannon High School's gym. Tears were shed and hugs were given. A fellow officer reflects on the memories he left with him.
Hard worker. Everybody that I know that knows him loves him. And he's an outstanding officer and an outstanding human being.
Philip Owings worked alongside Patterson for years. Owings says his impact on him lives on.
He and I have been in the law enforcement about the same amount of time. I knew him when I first got in. His professionalism, he taught me how to be a good officer.
Verona Police Chief Marcinio Nunn says he and the department will miss Patterson's embrace and people skills around the community.
I'll most remember Johnny by his smile and laughter. He's a jokester. He likes to joke a lot, and most definitely will miss that here at the department. If we had an encounter with somebody out here and we didn't know who they were, Johnny knew exactly who they were. Knew their mom, their dad. So that was one plus about having him around. He knew everybody.
Patterson was more than just an officer, though.
Both. A friend and an officer. And I worked with him a little bit in the city of Verona. But he and I talk quite frequently, at least maybe once or twice a month.
Lee County Justice Court Judge Anthony Rogers also had a close relationship with Patterson. And he says it won't just be family, friends, and officers that will miss him.
He meant something to the kids as well here in the community, especially for them to be out of school and then going to come up here to pay their respect to him.
Each person that talked to WCBI also encouraged people to be observant of their surroundings while they're driving, especially in a school zone.
Kimberly Richardson continues our live team coverage. She is in Inwood, where she's been learning more about Officer Rivera and his mission to be a role model to young people. Kimberly?
Well, Sandra, an emotional day here at Riverdale Funeral Home, but October 9th, that day, that's a day that Officer Jason Rivera will never forget. It was the day he got married. Today, his widow telling her late husband to, quote, "Fly high, my beautiful angel." Today, hundreds of members of the NYPD stood shoulder to shoulder with New York City firefighters as a hearse carrying the body of fallen officer Jason Rivera left the medical examiner. At one point, his brother telling the somber crowd, quote, "Don't forget my brother because he loved all of you." A short time later at Riverdale Funeral Home in Inwood, his mother overcome with emotion as her family made arrangements for services later this week.
He liked to take care of everybody in the street. You're 22 years old.
Jason graduated from Washington Heights Expeditionary Learning School in 2017. This was a class project. As a senior, his message to ninth graders.
I want y'all to do it. Because when I was a freshman, I didn't have no one to motivate me. I want to motivate y'all.
Samantha taught Jason in 10th and 11th grades, remembers his intense desire to give back, to help, which is exactly what he was doing Friday night on that call in Harlem when he was shot and killed.
The idea of him being the first person to run toward, to go towards a problem, to try and help solve a problem, to go and try and help somebody in need is absolutely characteristic of Jason.
Jason was part of the Dykeman Run Club, remembered as a humble, honorable young man.
Stay strong, do good in your schools, and trust me, you'll be finished soon.
Now, services for Officer Rivera will be held at St. Patrick's Cathedral. His wake will be Thursday from 1 to 8 p.m. His funeral Friday morning at 9. The thing everybody said over and over today, the thing they will miss most about Officer Rivera, his spirit and that smile.
Across the city continue paying their respects to fallen officer Jason Rivera. CBS 2's Kevin Rincon continues our team coverage live from Harlem tonight. Kevin?
And Jessica, tonight we have seen folks come by to this memorial to pay their respects. These candles lit in Officer Jason Rivera's memory. It was just up the road that he was fatally shot responding to that call. And even though he was just 22 years old, he has committed his life to service well before he ever put a badge on. The emotions have been raw. Family, friends, fellow officers have come out in solidarity to grieve the loss of Officer Jason Rivera. His body was taken from the medical examiner's office to a funeral home in Inwood. There, his aunt offered this message.
I just want the city to change. We're losing a lot of young guys.
Change is the same thing Rivera wanted. It's why he chose to serve. His desire to help others exemplified in this video message to students after graduating from a Washington Heights high school.
I want y'all to hear me, hear my voice, and know that y'all gonna get through it. Stay strong, do good in your schools, and trust me, you'll be finished soon.
One of his former teachers called him a treasure.
It's rare that you find a member of the community that literally was universally loved by everybody, and he was. His legacy is going to continue to uplift the community and bring people together.
That love could be felt as officers from far and wide lined up to watch his body go by. At the funeral home, his casket draped in the NYPD's green and white flag rolled into salutes. Susanna Rosario is a family friend, says Rivera knew from an early age he wanted to be part of New York's finest.
He was a person that when he was a little boy, he always said he wanted to be police officer. And he was an angel, because when he was a little boy, he said, I want to take care of the people. That's why he wanted to be a police.
Rivera had just recently gotten married last fall. His widow, in an Instagram post, shared a photo of his locker, writing, I love you till the end of time. And that's a sentiment that resonates tonight, and we can tell you whether it be going to the hospital, the medical examiner's office, or to the funeral home, we have seen a sea of support and solidarity with Rivera's family and friends, and that is a level of support we continue to expect to see in the days and weeks ahead. We're live in Harlem. Kevin Rincon, CBS 2 News.
Tribute. A second New York City police officer shot on duty last week has died. That's according to an announcement on Twitter by the city's head of police. Police Commissioner Keishan Sewell called Officer Wilbert Mora a hero for, quote, choosing a life of service, for sacrificing his life to protect others, for giving life even in death through organ donation. His death followed that of fellow officer Jason Rivera, who was also shot while responding to the same domestic disturbance call. The suspected gunman, LaShawn McNeil, was shot by a third rookie officer and was later pronounced dead. Rivera and Mora were 2 of 4 New York City police officers shot over the last week. Recently elected Mayor Eric Adams campaigned on public safety and has promised to quickly quell the violence.
Blueprint to end gun violence.
On Monday, Adams unveiled a public safety plan. A second New York City police officer shot on duty last week has died. That's according to an announcement on Twitter by the city's head of police. Police Commissioner Keishan Sewell called Officer Wilbert Mora a hero for, quote, choosing a life of service, for sacrificing his life to protect others, for giving life even in death through organ donation. His death followed that of fellow officer Jason Rivera, who was also shot while responding to the same domestic disturbance call. The suspected gunman, LaShawn McNeil, was shot by a third rookie officer and was later pronounced dead. Rivera and Mora were 2 of 4 New York City police officers shot over the last week. Recently elected Mayor Eric Adams campaigned on public safety and has promised to quickly quell the violence.
Blueprint to end gun violence.
On Monday, Adams unveiled a public safety plan to end gun violence and increase the number of police officers in New York's most vulnerable communities.
Again tonight with the death of Officer Wilbert Mora.
He had undergone 2 surgeries over the weekend after getting shot and ambushed while responding to a domestic call. The 27-year-old died today at NYU Langone Medical Center. His partner, 22-year-old Officer Jason Rivera, was killed at the scene on Friday night.
And this afternoon, Officer Mora's remains were escorted by an NYPD motorcade to the medical examiner's office just a few blocks away. CBS 2's Dick Brennan live in Harlem with the latest for us. Dick.
Well, Christina Maurice, we're here at the 32nd Precinct, and now they're mourning loss of 2 hero officers here. Officer Wilbert Mora was taken off life support today, but not before one last selfless act on his part, giving the gift of life. Tonight, police officers and friends came to pay their respects at a makeshift memorial outside the home of police officer Wilbert Mora, who lost his fight for life today.
It's really heartbreaking, really heartbreaking.
Edgard Vega lives next door to the Mora family in their building on East 112th Street and says his mother would always love to talk about her son, the police officer.
Every time, I ask about the son, she'd be like, oh yeah, he's doing great, oh my God, but I'm so scared and whatnot, but other than that, I'm happy, he's doing great things, big things. I'm like, that's good, that's good.
She was proud of him.
Yes, very proud.
Mora was shot on Friday night along with his partner, 22-year-old Jason Rivera, after they responded to a domestic dispute that turned into an ambush. Two young heroes giving their lives for the city.
For this heartbreak to happen off of a simple domestic violence case, which it was totally uncalled for. And my condolences to the younger officer as well. And it's young guys, and it shouldn't happen.
It's sad. It's sad. My heart goes out to them. Oh my God, I can't stop crying. I've been crying ever since I heard about it.
The police commissioner tweeted, Wilbert is 3 times a hero for choosing a life of service, for sacrificing his life to protect others, for giving life, even in death, through organ donation. Our heads are bowed and our hearts are heavy. Mora's organ donation could save up to 5 lives.
At the time of his passing, Officer Mora's family knew that he became a police officer to protect and serve and save lives. And they wanted to make sure that while that was true in his life, it would also be true, unfortunately, in this tragic death that took this hero away from us.
Tonight at the 32nd Precinct, officers gathered and prayed for the families of their 2 fallen comrades.
To lose a family member like that, it's crazy. And somebody so young and so dedicated to his job and stuff like that, it's heartbreaking, really.
Heartbreaking indeed. Now, we understand that at least one of the people who could be a candidate to receive an organ donation is a relative of Wilbert Mora. Truly an extraordinarily final act of love. We're live in Harlem. Dick Brennan, CBS 2 News.
Well said, Dick.
Now at 5, breaking news. The man accused of opening fire on NYPD cops in Harlem has died, and we're learning new details about what else police found in his possession.
One of those officers critically injured as the department mourns the death of one of their own. New York City's mayor outraged and firing off a new plan he calls the blueprint to end gun violence, to save our streets.
We need everyone to come together in common cause. We need help. We need resources. We need backup.
And we begin with that breaking news. Good evening, everyone, at 5 o'clock. I'm Bill Rivera.
And I'm Sandra Bookman in for Sade. Police say the gunman who opened fire on those NYPD officers in Harlem Friday has died. 47-year-old LaShawn McNeil had little to no brain activity when he arrived at the hospital.
The mayor today revealing new photos of the weapon police say he used to kill an officer and critically injured another. And this, a photo of an AR-15 style weapon they found under his mattress at the scene.
Officer Jason Rivera killed in the line of duty, a rookie officer just married with a bright future. Officer Wilbert Mora, a 4-year veteran of the NYPD, still in critical condition.
And the mayor vowing to take the city back with a new crime-fighting plan to crush a wave of violence in New York City streets. Our Eyewitness News reporter Stefan Kim following that part of the story, but we're going to begin with Eyewitness News reporter Lauren Glassberg. She's live in Kips Bay with the latest on Officer Mora's condition. Lauren.
Yeah, Bill, Wilbert Mora is 27 years old. He is in the prime of his life, and now that hero is here at NYU Langone in critical condition. He is also on the minds and in the hearts of so many New Yorkers tonight. Today, tiny lights flicker outside Officer Wilbert Mora's home in East Harlem. Many of these candles lit by fellow members of the NYPD praying for Officer Mora. Last night, Mora was transferred to NYU Langone from Harlem Hospital. First responders lined the streets saluting their brother. Mora and Officer Jason Rivera were both ambushed Friday night during a domestic violence call. Both shot in the head. News that was hard to hear for Damian Castro, a neighbor of Officer Mora.
It's a shame. Nobody tried to worry going to work that they're not going to be able to come home. I pray for them, and I hope everything comes back home safe.
Officer Rivera didn't make it home. The 27-year-old didn't survive the gunshot wound to his head that night. These candles outside his home in Inwood are in his memory. Jose Torres worked with Rivera for several years at the neighborhood pharmacy.
He was a nice guy, he was a sweetheart. Yeah, I really miss him a lot.
He says Rivera was just biding his time at the pharmacy until he joined the police force.
He used to work with me in the pharmacy. We used to do deliveries. He used to work inside, help customers. He wanted to be a cop. He didn't want to work in the pharmacy. He wanted to work there because, you know, this is only part-time, that's it. From there, he wanted his dream to be a cop.
Now, Rivera, just a rookie cop, just getting started and just married. He got married in October. So much to live for, and now his family is getting ready to say goodbye. His wake will be on Thursday, his funeral on Friday. Both will be held at St. Patrick's Cathedral.
This is 37-year-old DPS Special Agent Anthony Salas. Salas was working in conjunction with Border Patrol agents when the tragic accident took place around 7:30 Friday night in Eagle Pass. These pictures from the Eagle Pass news leader show the site of the crash. State and federal sources tell us 6 people had been arrested near the Rio Grande River by Salas and Border Patrol. Salas was sitting in the back of this truck, providing security for the driver and those apprehended when something happened, causing the Border Patrol pickup to roll down the embankment. The trooper was crushed by the vehicle, according to sources. Tonight, DPS sent a statement that in part reads, EMS personnel transported Salas to Fort Duncan Regional Medical Center, and later he was airlifted to University Hospital in San Antonio. Special Agent Salas passed away just after 11 a.m. with his family by his side. Governor Greg Abbott was in San Antonio this weekend and spoke about the fallen officer.
Overnight, a Texas Department of Public Safety special agent was involved in apprehending some people who were not just here illegally, but were smuggling drugs in the United States. And during the course of that operation, there was a vehicle accident, and the Texas Department of Public Safety special agent lost his life.
Salas was one of 1,600 Texas state troopers who are deployed to the border as part of Operation Lone Star, which began last March. Agent Salas was a member of DPS West Texas Special Response Team, and he served in the U.S. Marines.
This is not the first time last night they've been cracking down on drug smugglers. They've been doing this every single day, and I got to tell you a reason why they needed to escalate it. And that's because of the record-breaking amount of fentanyl that's coming across our border.
We have asked Border Patrol in Eagle Pass for more information on the 6 undocumented who are in custody and what charges they're now facing. In a statement sent to us, Border Patrol says Texas Department of Public Safety and Customs and Border Protection's Office of Professional Responsibility are investigating. The Department of Homeland Security's Office of the Inspector General was also notified. The condition of those arrested is not known.
Today, dozens of law enforcement officers, family members, and friends welcomed 37-year-old Anthony Salas back to El Paso. Today, they also said their last goodbye.
I'm here to pay respect and show support for the first responders.
The motorcade made up of law enforcement officers started here at Atlantic Aviation and ended at Crestview Funeral Home, nearly 9 miles away. There, you could see El Pasoans waiting to show their respect to the fallen agent.
I think it means a lot for them to see that they come out to support their family.
Matthew Reed was a part of the procession. He says first responders and law enforcement officers are a big family. While he didn't know Anthony personally, his passing hurts just as bad.
If we can come together as a community and show support for one another, make this place a better place.
Special Agent Salas was involved in a single vehicle crash on Friday while transporting 6 undocumented individuals. He was transported to a hospital in San Antonio where he later died, his family by his side.
We're just sending prayers out to the family and friends and everybody in blue.
Well, as you mentioned, Brandon, the search continues tonight for the person responsible for shooting and killing Corporal Charles Galloway. In a press conference overnight, Houston Police Chief Troy Fenner said the best thing the suspect could do is turn himself in peacefully. Corporal Charles Galloway devoted his life to serving others. He was a 12-year veteran of the Harris County Precinct 5 Constable's Office, a friend to those in blue, but more importantly, a family man.
He is survived by a daughter as well as his sister and the numerous officers here at Precinct 5. His role was taking a lot of these young officers who were sworn in and mentoring them.
Galloway, just 47, was shot and killed during a traffic stop. His patrol vehicle riddled with bullets.
It was a white, newer model Toyota Avalon, a four-door, white in color. Witnesses described the suspect as a Hispanic male, said that he got out of his vehicle and immediately fired upon the deputy multiple times, striking him, and then drove off.
Houston area leaders offering prayers and condolences while investigators do what they can to track down the suspect.
I am just heartbroken. I just spoke with his sister. This is a tragedy that nobody should face.
In a statement, Mayor Sylvester Turner said in part, quote, "The person responsible for taking Corporal Galloway's life will be found and brought to justice. It is just a matter of time. There is no place you can hide." NHPD is in charge of this investigation. If you have any information on the suspect or this case, you have to call Crime Stoppers. That number, 713-222-TIPS. Live in West Houston, Bill Barajas, KPRC 2 News.
Tonight, an active manhunt for Oscar Rosales. The 51-year-old is on the run, accused of shooting and killing a Harris County Precinct 5 corporal. Tonight, we're learning new details about that suspect from those who worked with him. KPRC 2's Brandon Walker has the very latest from downtown Houston tonight. Brandon?
And Chris, who knows Rosales? How they may know him? Two very big questions tonight as that search carries on.
This is a murderer.
The manhunt for Oscar Rosales has reached hour 64, 2.5 days of searching.
There are individuals out there that know him.
For the man police say killed Harris County Precinct 5 Constable Corporal Charles Galloway. Multiple sources who worked with Rosales tell KPRC2.
Developing tonight, an active manhunt for Oscar Rosales. The 51-year-old is on the run, accused of shooting and killing a Harris County Precinct 5 corporal. Tonight, we're learning new details about that suspect from those who worked with him. KPRC 2's Brandon Walker has the very latest from downtown Houston tonight. Brandon?
And Chris, who knows Rosales? How they may know him? Two very big questions tonight as that search carries on.
This is a murderer.
The manhunt for Oscar Rosales has reached hour 64, 2.5 days of searching.
There are individuals out there that know him.
For the man police say killed Harris County Precinct 5 Constable Corporal Charles Galloway. Multiple sources who worked with Rosales tell KPRC2 he was an auto body repair mechanic, having held jobs at repair shops primarily on the southwest side. This picture documents Rosales with co-workers at one of those repair shops. Sources tonight not commenting on whether investigators have interviewed them. Nonetheless, they could provide potential clues about Rosales' whereabouts. Another possible clue?
I do find there's probable cause.
Investigators yesterday searched a dumpster steps from the front door of Rosales' brother-in-law, Henry Pereira Marquez, in southwest Harris County. That's where investigators say they saw Pereira Marquez and Rosales' common-law wife, Reina, with the Toyota they say Rosales was driving the night of the shooting.
The defendants were seen wiping down this particular vehicle.
That's grounds for a charge of tampering, fabricating physical evidence, but KPRC2 legal analyst Brian Weiss says that charge also allows investigators to probe the pair on what Rosales may have told them.
What else this alleged cop killer said that may shed light and give strength to the prosecution's case somewhere down the road.
And with that, Weiss says don't be surprised if there's a plea deal on the table for those two co-defendants there. All of that worthy to the investigation. They remain behind bars tonight, though, on a $100,000 bond. Live downtown, I'm Brandon Walker, KPRC 2 News.
And that breaking news, captured a Houston fugitive, an accused cop killer tracked down in Mexico.
This is not a common occurrence here in Del Rio. Here lately we've been in the news for, basically the bad things have been going on. So, the good thing is today that, this individual is off the streets.
The 3-day manhunt for Oscar Rosales is now over. Houston police officers are headed home right now with him. They're expected back in our city very soon, where he faces capital murder of a peace officer.
Rosales was captured in Ciudad Acuna. The Gulf Coast Violent Offenders Task Force and the Mexican authorities, they worked together to get him into custody
And
today.
from there, he was taken across the border to Del Rio, and that's where we saw the transfer into HPD custody live right here on KPRC2. And that's where we start our team coverage tonight. Investigator Robert Arnold is the only Houston reporter along the border who's covering this arrest tonight. Robert, what do you have?
From the minute that Oscar Rosales was identified and charged with the murder of Corporal Charles Galloway, police say they thought he may try to make it into Mexico. The U.S. Marshal Service, which spearheads the Gulf Coast Violent Offenders Task Force, immediately began talking with their counterparts south of the border. And this morning, that work paid off. Surrounded by Houston Police, U.S. Marshals, and Precinct 5 Assistant Chief Kevin Hubbard, Oscar Rosales was loaded into a sheriff's SUV and driven to the Del Rio International Airport. Members of the Gulf Coast Violent Offenders Task Force got a tip from their counterparts in Mexico. Rosales was staying in a motel in Ciudad Acuna. He was arrested this morning and by noon was back on U.S. soil. U.S. Marshals say he did not put up a fight when captured.
He was transported to the Valverde Sheriff's Office, where he was processed in. He was magistrated.
Valverde County Sheriff Joe Frank Martinez says Rosales didn't make any statements while in jail and caused no trouble. The transfer back to Marshals and Houston Police was quick. It's about a 2-hour flight from Del Rio to Houston, so Rosales should be back on Houston soil within the hour. Houston police had planned to give us an update on the investigation this evening, but have postponed their news conference until tomorrow. Reporting live from the Valverde County Sheriff's Office in Del Rio, Robert Arnold, KPRC2 News.
45-year-old Sergeant Ramon Gutierrez was escorting a heavy convoy load along the Beltway in Tidwell when he was hit.
He was flown to the hospital but did not survive his injuries. The woman accused of hitting Sergeant Gutierrez and speeding off has been identified as La Villa Spry. This is a previous mugshot. She is now charged with intoxication manslaughter of a peace officer. KPRC2's Brittany Jeffers has more on how the 20-year veteran of the force is being remembered.
I spoke with Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, and he says that the department is grieving, but also Sergeant Gutierrez's family, who he spoke with this morning. He says the sergeant was a husband, married to his high school sweetheart. He had 3 children, his daughter set to be married here in 2 months. He tells us that those who worked with Sergeant Ramon Gutierrez said that he was an exemplary person, and that he was a family man, and he'd been with the sheriff's office for more than 20 years. But that tragic accident took place out on East Sam Houston Parkway at Tidwell around 12:30 last night. The sheriff says Sergeant Gutierrez was on an extra job doing traffic control for a convoy of oversized machinery when he was struck by a driver. Now this morning, that driver, the suspect in this case, identified as 40-year-old La Villa Spry. According to investigators, she didn't stop to render help and is accused of continuing to drive about 1.5 miles away as law enforcement pursued her, eventually taking her into custody. Investigators say that she did show signs of intoxication. Sergeant Gutierrez was flown to the hospital downtown but later passed away. Sheriff says that this has been very difficult for law enforcement, this loss weighing heavily on their hearts.
It's just very difficult. It just really is. It's hard when you see family breaking down and they're heartbroken and their dreams are shattered, right before your eyes, and dreams unfulfilled. As I said, with her daughter set to be married here soon, we should be planning a wedding, not a funeral service. But team members crying, grown men, professionals that see this on a day in and day out basis that handle these type of crash investigations and things like that. But to have to be investigating the death of one of their own, is extremely difficult. And
now, as for the suspect, she is currently in custody. She is charged with intoxication, manslaughter, evading, and failure to stop and render aid. I'm Brittany Jeffers, KPRC 2 News.
Law enforcement also mourning the death of Harris County Sergeant Ramon Gutierrez. The woman accused of driving drunk and hitting him with her car appeared in court tonight, and the judge did not hold back. Here's Lauren Tallarico.
Tonight, 40-year-old Lavilia Spry couldn't say much as she stood before a judge on 3 charges: intoxication, assault, manslaughter, failure to stop and render aid, and evading arrest, all in connection to the death of Sergeant Ramon Gutierrez.
Our hearts are broken, and there just really isn't any words when we lose a hero.
Sheriff Ed Gonzalez says at about 12:30 this morning, his 20-year veteran was blocking the Tidwell exit ramp on the East Beltway with his motorcycle, directing traffic on his feet, lights and vest on, when Spry hit him and just kept going.
Completely disregarded Sergeant Gutierrez.
Harris County Vehicular Crimes Division Chief Sean Tier.
She struck him. She drug him for quite a while, and then just continued on as if nothing happened.
Tier says Spry drove more than a mile even after officers tried to pull her over, eventually stopping in a neighborhood, then failed a field sobriety test.
She is currently unemployed due to recently giving birth.
In court, we learned the suspect has a 4-week-old baby, as well as a 15-year-old. She has no former DWIs on record, but a judge still felt Spry could be a danger and set bond at $275,000.
The idea that the defendant has 2 children at home who rely on her, she's not very concerned with that because she's on the road at 1:30 in the morning, intoxicated.
Meanwhile, another law enforcement agency is mourning.
Our hearts are broken.
As is the family of Sergeant Ramon Gutierrez.
He is survived by his wife, his high school sweetheart, his daughter, who was set to be married in about 2 months, and also his sons as well. The father won't be there to walk his daughter down the aisle. You can't put a price on that.
I'm Lauren Tellerico, KHOU 11 News.
That's right, Chris. Less than 24 hours after Sergeant Gutierrez was killed near this location, the woman charged in his death did make her first court appearance. If she is able to make bond, she will have quite a few restrictions to face.
Let's get started with Lavilia Spry.
The Northeast Harris County woman charged with killing a Harris County Sheriff's Sergeant in a hit and run made her first court appearance Monday and for now is remaining in jail. 40-year-old Lavilia Spry had little to say, sitting in the very back row of the courtroom.
When you get to court, are you asking the judge to appoint an attorney to represent you?
No. Spry has been charged with 3 counts, including first-degree intoxication manslaughter in the death of 45-year-old Sergeant Ramon Gutierrez. Gutierrez was directing traffic on his motorcycle early Monday morning when prosecutors say Spry ran into him and dragged him until another officer was able to stop her, then force her to pull over.
We are opposed to personal bond in all 3 cases. This case involves the death of an officer where the officer was directing traffic and was struck by her vehicle.
A court-appointed attorney asked for a $55,000 bond, citing the fact that Spry has only 1 prior misdemeanor on her record. The attorney also mentioned the fact that Spry has a 15-year-old and a newborn at home, but the judge would not be swayed.
The defendant has 2 children at home who rely on her. She's not very concerned with that because she's on the road at 1:30 in the morning, intoxicated.
So bond for Spry for all 3 charges has been set at $275,000. She's also been ordered to stay away from Sergeant Gutierrez's family, and she also must check in several times a week and also take a urinalysis several times a week as well. She also is not allowed to leave the Harris County area until her trial. If she does make bond, she will also have several other restrictions. We're live from Northeast Harris County. Keith Garvin, KPRC 2 News.
Deputies say she then kept driving and didn't stop. Several officers had to chase her down, and she was finally pulled over more than a mile away from the scene. This is video of her being taken into custody overnight and video of her car. The sheriff's office says she appeared to be intoxicated Harris County Assistant DA Sean Tier was at the scene at the time. He shared that the sergeant's death hits close to home because he knew him personally.
When you have crashes like this, I mean, we're on these scenes day in and day out, but when it's somebody that's close to you, it adds an even larger layer to it.
Sergeant Gutierrez was later airlifted to Memorial Hermann Hospital where he died. This is video of his police procession that unfolded early this morning where officers helped to escort his body from the hospital to the medical examiner's office. Of course, our hearts go out to Sergeant Gutierrez's family.
How beautiful he is. What a huge loss. Just a huge loss.
We're just days removed from the passing of one of Seattle's finest. K-9 officer Jedi was stabbed and killed while responding to an attempted burglary in the Beacon Hill neighborhood last Wednesday, along with his handler who was injured during the confrontation, but is expected to be okay.
When I heard about what happened with Jedi, I felt compelled to do something.
Ann Graves is the retired director of the Seattle Animal Shelter. She, along with a handful of others, dropped off flowers, notes, and pictures at the South Precinct on Monday, paying their respects to a dog they're calling a hero.
In person, tangible. So I came here, I left some flowers, said my piece with Jedi.
SPD says Jedi was one of only 6 officer canines in the department, and police say he and his handler were involved in many successful tracks, searches, and arrests over Jedi's 5 years on the force, which is heartbreaking for Graves, who has known both officers throughout that time.
The bond that I've seen with the canines and their handlers, i.e. their officers, is a strong, special human-animal bond.
And the public is invited to come to this precinct every day until